The book of Exodus tells the amazing story of the Israelites' deliverance from slavery in Egypt. God, through Moses, had heard the cries of his people and intervened with mighty power. He sent plagues upon the Egyptians, culminating in the Passover. The Israelites, spared from this final plague, were finally free. However, their journey to the Promised Land was just beginning. Their path led them into the wilderness, a harsh and unforgiving environment. The initial joy of their newfound freedom quickly gave way to fear and uncertainty. The vast expanse of the desert offered little in the way of sustenance. They faced hunger and thirst, their faith tested with each passing day. It was amidst these trying circumstances that God revealed his faithfulness and care. He provided for their needs miraculously, sending them bread from heaven called manna. This miraculous provision became a defining moment in their journey. The Israelites' journey through the wilderness was fraught with challenges. Food and water, essential for survival, was scarce. The people began to grumble against Moses and Aaron.
Why did you bring us out of Egypt to die in this wilderness?
There we had meat and bread to the full. Here we have nothing.
It was in the midst of their despair that God intervened. He promised to rain bread down from heaven. This bread, called manna, was unlike anything they had seen before.
The word manna means what is it?
It was a powerful symbol of God's love and faithfulness.
Manna became a tangible reminder that they were not forgotten. The book of Exodus describes manna as a fine, flaky substance, like a thin layer of frost on the ground. It was white, small and round, resembling coriander seed. Its taste is described as being like wafers made with honey, a sweet and satisfying flavor. Every morning after the dew had lifted, the Israelites would find this miraculous food covering the ground around their camp. They were instructed to gather only what they needed for each day, no more. This was a test of their trust in God's daily provision. The appearance and taste of manna, however, were not as important as its source and significance. It was a gift from heaven, a supernatural provision that defied natural explanation. This miraculous food sustained the Israelites for 40 years in the wilderness, a powerful testament to God's faithfulness to his promises.
The provision of manna was not without its rules. God, through Moses, gave specific instructions on how it was to be gathered. Each person was to collect an omer, a specific unit of measure, per day. This ensured that everyone had enough and no one hoarded more than they needed.
There was, however, one exception to this rule. On the sixth day, the day before the Sabbath, they were to gather a double portion. This was to prepare for the Sabbath rest, a day on which no manna would appear. This instruction was a test of faith and obedience. Would the Israelites trust God's word and gather only what was permitted? Would they honor the Sabbath, a day set aside for rest and worship, even when it meant having to gather double the manna the day before? The Sabbath, the seventh day of the week, held special significance for the Israelites. It was a day ordained by God for rest and worship, a time to cease from their labors and acknowledge their Creator. Even in the wilderness, God did not want his people to be consumed by their struggles. He provided a rhythm of work and rest, a time to reflect on his goodness and provision. The miracle of the manna was intertwined with the observance of the Sabbath.
On the sixth day, we were to gather a double portion of manna. This extra portion, unlike the manna gathered on the other days, would not spoil overnight. This was a tangible reminder that God would provide for our needs, even when we rested. It was a test of our faith, a challenge to trust in His provision and honor His commandment to keep the Sabbath holy.
The provision of manna was more than just a means of sustenance. It was a powerful symbol of God's covenant with His people. Just as He provided manna daily, He promised to be their God and they His people. This covenant, first established with Abraham, was reaffirmed through Moses.
God promised to lead the Israelites to the promised land, a land flowing with milk and honey. The manna, in a sense, was a foretaste of that promise, a reminder that God was faithful to His word. The Israelites were to remember this act of God's provision. In fact, God instructed Moses to place an omer of manna within the Ark of the Covenant, a sacred chest that housed the stone tablets on which the 10 Commandments were written. This jar of manna would serve as a lasting reminder of God's faithfulness and provision during their wilderness wanderings.
The story of manna is a powerful testament to God's love, provision, and faithfulness. It reminds us that even in the most difficult and uncertain times, God is with us. He provides for our needs, often in ways we least expect. The Israelites' experience in the wilderness holds valuable lessons for us today. Just as they were tested and refined through their journey, so too are we. Our challenges may be different, but the God who provided manna in the wilderness is the same God who walks with us today. The story of manna encourages us to trust in God's provision, to obey His commands, and to find rest in His presence. It reminds us that our God is a God of miracles, and He is faithful to His promises. Like the Israelites, let us remember the bread from heaven, a symbol of God's enduring love and care.